solution. Anyway, so this, what you're seeing right in front of you, is our latest and greatest Carbon Insight prototype. And what it does is it helps consumers, banks, customers have a very good idea of what their carbon footprint is. And the reason we developed this, in the panel also I shared some stats, but there's definitely a demand for this. Consumers are getting more and more carbon conscious. And when they become carbon conscious, they're looking at a few different things. First, they're looking to be aware, and they want the right insights. They want to understand the impact that they're having on the environment. And then the second most important thing is they are looking for options, for actions, or they want to be able to do something about that once they learn what their impact is. So I'm not going to belabor why too much, and I'm just going to get right into it.
Kanika, your screen is cut from the top and the bottom. I don't know whether.
No, it's the issue with Figma, and I'll try to it's a prototype, so I'll try to walk you through the entire screen. So Rajiv, you may not be familiar, but this is a live Meniga app in Iceland, which is a B2C, but everywhere else we're a white label. But the data that you're seeing, the look and feel is the same there, but the data that you're seeing is demo data. So now, as you can see, it's a very user-friendly Facebook feed kind of, Facebook kind of feed where you can see all your transactions categorized, enriched. But since we don't have time to go into our, into our main mobile platform, I'll just talk through the carbon estimate solution that we have. So I'm just going to go in here. This is, so just to, so this is a prompt when consumers are using their mobile platform. This is a prompt that will be generated by the platform, and it is an option. So if I'm a carbon conscious consumer, I'm going to look at it and I'll say, yeah, yes, please sign me up. Want to see your carbon footprint? Absolutely. Sounds good. And there, now my CO2 estimation is active. So as I go about doing my transactions, my platform is going to start giving me a very good estimate, and I'll show you just in a second how. Let's go into it. So now you're looking at a snapshot view of what my carbon footprint is going to look like. Now, right on the top here, you can see, by time period, last week, last month, this month, this year, like since we have that transaction data, since we have, that information and that knowledge on the customer, on the spend categories, we can dice the data and do a deep dive at any level. So this is your overall carbon footprint. Sorry, is there a question? Okay.
No, not yet.
Okay.
No question. Yeah.
Yeah. So now usually in carbon footprint estimation, there are three major categories, right? So one is your transportation, vacation and travel, and food. These are typically the top three categories which would cause the biggest impact on a consumer level to your carbon footprint. Now let's take a look into cars and transportation, for instance. Again, it's a deep dive. It gives you, a graphical view. It gives you the total, these 280 kgs, and usually to offset, say, a ton of CO2 is about 6 euros to 10 euros. So this is on a consumer basis. Yes, your carbon footprint is high and or not. So for instance, here we can see compared to the rest of the community, your carbon footprint for cars and transportation is 4% lower than the others. So you're actually doing pretty well. And if you are biking everywhere, or if you're walking more, or if you're using the public transportation, this could continue to decrease. And it also, this knowledge helps you make better everyday choices. Now let's look at food, because that tends to be a very personal, um, you know, very, very personal choice. And it is not dependent really on which country you're in, but it's very dependent on your own choices that you're making on a daily basis. So for instance, let's go to, your diet makes a difference. Sorry, it's gotten. I was trying to show you all the options.
So how is it then pulling the data? Where does it?
So this is the transaction data, which we have categorized. The transaction data is being pulled from all the banks' proprietary systems. It could be current account, savings account, card payments, all of the bank's proprietary systems at a consumer level, and we are consolidating it at a consumer level through. Okay, there you go. So choose your diet. Now, okay, I'm vegetarian. So say I choose vegan or vegetarian. Once I choose that, before I chose, my original kg was around 150 something, 168, and now it's 143. So just by making better choices, I have suddenly reduced my carbon footprint, or my estimate, and all the numbers now. So while I was at par with the others, now my carbon footprint based on the community metrics is 10%, or is lesser than the rest of the community. Okay. Now let me go back to the main screen. And we were originally, when we started out, we were saying that people not only want to know, so this is the first part, that they want to be aware of what their footprint is, but they also want options on how to offset it. Now there are a few ways that you can offset it. One is you can look to for instance, do very sustainable savings. For instance, you can actually, look to invest in funds which are supporting sustainability projects. So say, I look at green growth savings products. This is what I've invested in. I agree, and I open my account. Or you might want to not just look at that sustainable banking aspect, you might want to offset your emissions. Now, see, in offsetting, there could be two ways. You could want to offset by donating to a cause which is supporting climate change. So for instance, this is a representation of what that could look like for your bank. These are the various United Nations causes that they could potentially donate towards. So for instance, here per project, there is a number given. There's 10 euros per ton. So suppose if you donate 10 euros to this cause, you are reducing your impact by a ton of CO2 emissions, which is pretty good at an individual level, and that can make you feel really good. And again, some of these projects are actually live, which is why we have mentioned them here. We have worked with UN quite excessively. And then in the interest of time, I will rush to show you. You could take a challenge. For instance, we talked about, or we showed you how your fast food spend is 10% on the higher side. You can make better choices. You can look at more green options and less fast food options, or you could visit, sustainable restaurants, or farmers markets more rather than going to say a McDonald's, or so those are the kinds of fast food challenges, or you can, the platform can help you prompt, but obviously the choices are yours at the end of the day. If you're motivated, you will do well with those challenges. Again, fuel, the same thing. Don't drive to too many places. Maybe try and cut down your fuel spend by 30%. And you could, if the mobile app is integrated with Strava or Fitbit, then we can actually even suggest how many more steps you need to add to every day to offset your fuel carbon CO2 emissions. Now here is what people also like. They also like to see, advice and articles, and look at this. In this case, it's a step-by-step guide to reduce food waste. And sometimes this kind of knowledge is very relevant, especially um, from one market to another, because there are different ways of doing this. Now, Bali would be a very different scenario than, say, a Singapore. Even within Asia, we see a lot of diversity when it comes to reduction of food waste, or other causes like that. Okay. I know we are running short on time. We are very close to 11. So I will stop here and see if you have any questions.
Yes, I have a question. I have a question, Kanika.
Mhm.
Um, so this is really good, but you mentioned, is this carbon lives at any bank site or any...
Yeah. So the uh, the piece, I guess, Rajiv, that I wasn't able to go through is the app that you're seeing. That's actually a banking platform. It's a PFM, personal finance management platform, that Meniga is. We're leaders in that globally. Our implementations with banks, where we've helped them power either their own existing mobile platform, or we have helped them create a new one from scratch. Um, that spans 30 something countries. We work with 65, 70 brands at this point. But the carbon estimation is a build-up on top of our capabilities. So what we are considered a powerhouse for is our AI driven data engine. And that data engine extracts transaction data from banks' proprietary systems, like I was talking about. And as you can see in this feed as well, you have grocery, home insurance, fast food. So this is all the transactions per user, and we are able to enrich them in a way, add categories to it, whether it's through MCC codes provided on the card side, or it is, through studying customer behavior, or through community learning, community data, or the bank's, community data. So that is something we're already doing. Now, since we have the ability to enrich transactions and categorize them to this extent, we felt that we could take it a step further and build further on top. Let's try and see if we can actually create a carbon footprint for every single transaction that the user is going through, or is transacting with. So now groceries, home insurance. Now each of these, fast food, they all have a CO2 estimate associated with them based on the index for that particular market. Now, in Singapore, that, like in the Nordics, we're using the AMLAN index. And here, there are, most of the markets have their own individual indices, because um, in the US, for instance, the reliance on a personal transportation, cars, personal cars, is very high. But in a country like Singapore, that would obviously be a lot lower. So there can't be one index across the globe. It has to be tailored and adapted to each and every market based on the usage.
Got it. So this
So
is
for
this is the Figma demo that you're showing us,
yeah,
right?
it's the prototype. Yeah, yeah.
Got
And
it.
for us, this Carbon Insights is a value add on top of our existing capabilities.
Got it. And your app actually plugs into like an SDK into a standard mobile banking of any bank, right? Got
Yeah,
it. Got it.
yeah.
Got it.
We
Okay. Thank you.
sure.
I think we'll connect off.
I've
I'll
got
just
one question.
line with you, Kanika, later. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Rajiv. Thanks for stopping by. Lovely to meet you. Yeah, and sorry.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, so this pulls the data only from one particular bank, or can you include cards, for example, from other banks onto the app?
So in open banking, yes, we can, consolidate data on our PFM platform or BFM platform from multiple sources, and they don't have to be limited to one bank. But in many countries here in Asia Pac, open banking is still not like it. In many countries, it's the guidelines exist, but the actual regulation is not there, which mandates banks and financial institutions to be able to share data across. Um,
Right.
in that scenario, in those markets, then it won't be possible.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, because of course that would be quite interesting to have all of your
Yeah,
activities then under the same platform. Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. This was very interesting.
Excellent. So,
Good.
well, I'll stop here because I know that we're almost at 11, and you will probably need to run for your next meeting. But if you have any further questions, Anne and Rajiv, just feel free to reach out to me.